my beloved child. I know there were moments when you wanted to walk away. Walk away from the waiting. Walk away from the disappointment. Walk away from the prayers that seemed unanswered. But you stayed. No one applauded you for staying. No one noticed the tears you wiped away before anyone saw them. But I did. Stay with me, because before this message ends, you'll understand why your quiet decision to stay mattered more than you ever imagined. I saw you sitting in your parked car, engine off, hands still on the steering wheel. You weren't ready to walk inside yet. You needed one more minute, one more breath, one more moment before you put the smile back on. I was sitting right there with you. I heard the sigh you let out before you opened the door. That sigh carried the weight of things you never told anyone, and I held every ounce of it. I saw the cold coffee on your kitchen table, the one you made that morning but never drank, because the weight of the day hit you before you even took your first sip. You poured it out and kept going. You didn't complain. You didn't call anyone. You just rinsed the mug and started the day with nothing. No one noticed, but I did. There was a woman in Scripture named Ruth. She had every reason to leave, every logical reason to walk away from a hard road. She had lost everything. Her husband was gone. Her future looked empty. And yet, she stayed. My child, I'm going to show you why her story and your story are more connected than you realize. But not yet. I need you to hear something else first. I saw the night you almost deleted your prayer list. Your fingers hovered over that screen. You thought, what's the point? Nothing is changing. Nobody is answering. These prayers have been sitting here for months. Some of them for years. But something inside you whispered, not yet. Don't delete it yet. That whisper was me. That small voice that stopped your finger. That was my hand over yours. I saw you almost leave church. Not because you lost your faith, but because you were tired. Tired of pretending you were fine in a room full of people who never asked how you really were. You sat in that pew and smiled. You lifted your hands during worship, and inside you were barely holding on. Your shoes felt heavy walking in. Your heart felt heavier sitting down. But you stayed in your seat. You sang the words, and even though your voice broke on the inside, you finished the song. My child, do you know how many people walk away at that exact moment? Millions. They close the door and never come back. But you didn't. And what I'm about to tell you will change how you see every single moment you chose to stay. But first, I need you to see something you've been missing. I saw you almost quit your job. Not because you were lazy. Not because you didn't care. Because you were exhausted from giving everything and feeling like nothing came back. You sat at your desk after everyone else left. The office was quiet. The screen was still glowing. Papers were stacked beside your keyboard. And you stared at the wall and thought about walking away from all of it. Starting over. Disappearing. But you came back the next morning. You picked up your work bag. You walked out the front door. And you did it all again. I saw the shoes by your front door. The ones you slipped off after another long day. You stood in the hallway for a moment. Just stood there. Before anyone knew you were home. That pause between outside and inside. That quiet breath you took before you became what everyone needed you to be. I was in that pause with you. I have always been in that pause. If you have stayed through a difficult season, I want you to write 2 words in the comments right now. Write, "I stayed," because heaven is about to honor what nobody else noticed. I saw you folding laundry at 11 at night, not because you wanted to, because it needed to be done, and nobody else was going to do it. The house was quiet. The dryer had been sitting full for hours. Your hands were tired. Your heart was more tired. But you folded the next shirt, and the next one, and the next one. You smoothed out the wrinkles with hands that were carrying wrinkles of their own. That's not just laundry, my child. That's faithfulness woven into fabric. I saw you put your phone on silent, not because you didn't care about the messages, but because you couldn't carry one more person's weight that night. You needed silence. You needed space. You set the phone face down on the nightstand, and you felt guilty for needing rest. Don't. I gave you that silence as a gift. You were never meant to carry everyone. Now, most people think staying is passive. They think staying means nothing is happening. They think the person who stays is just stuck, just frozen, just too scared to move. But my beloved, staying is not the real miracle. I haven't told you yet what happened because you stayed. And when you hear it, you'll never see your quiet faithfulness the same way again. I saw you looking out your bedroom window at night. The house was dark. Everyone was asleep. And you stood there in the glow of the streetlight, with questions you couldn't say out loud. Questions about your future. Questions about whether things would ever change. Whether the pain would ever lift. Whether anyone actually cared. You didn't pray fancy words. You just stood there, forehead almost touching the glass. And that was enough. I heard everything your silence was saying. Silence is a language I have always understood. I saw you almost give up on your dream. The one you stopped talking about because people stopped believing in it. You put it in a drawer. Literally or in your heart, you tucked it away. You told yourself it was too late, that the window had closed, that you were foolish for ever wanting it. But late at night, when nobody was watching, you still thought about it. That thought was not random. That was me keeping it alive inside you, because I never put a dream in your heart to let it die. My beloved child, let me ask you something. Do you remember the morning you said, "I'm okay," and you weren't? You smiled at someone who asked. You nodded. You kept moving. But inside you were crumbling. You held yourself together with nothing but habit. And the hardest part was that nobody could tell the difference. You wore your strength so well that people believed you. They had no idea. But I never believed the mask. I always saw the real you underneath. And the real you was beautiful even in the breaking. You expected that your staying would make no difference. That it was just survival. Just getting through the day and doing it again tomorrow. But here's the reality, my child. Your staying was not just surviving. Your staying was quietly rebuilding something that was almost destroyed. You were reconstructing your own faith, brick by brick, tear by tear, prayer by prayer. You just couldn't see the building while you were inside it. I saw your work bag sitting by the door every morning, packed, zipped, ready. You picked it up the same way every day, sometimes with a deep breath, sometimes with a quiet prayer, sometimes with nothing at all. Just motion, just duty, just showing up because that's who you are. Even on the mornings when your body said stop and your mind said quit, You picked up that bag. You opened the front door. You walked into a world that didn't thank you. My child, that is not weakness. That is the kind of strength that changes history. Comment one word right now. Just one word. Right still. Because you are still here. You are still breathing. You are still believing. And that word alone makes the enemy tremble. Let me take you back to Ruth. When Ruth chose to stay with Naomi, nobody threw a celebration. There was no feast, no applause, no angels appearing with confirmation. In fact, the road ahead looked harder, not easier. She was walking into a foreign land, into a culture she didn't know, into a future she couldn't predict. Every step she took on that dusty road felt like a risk with no reward. But she kept walking, one foot in front of the other. And here's what Ruth didn't know. She didn't know that her staying would put her in the right field at the right time. She didn't know that her quiet faithfulness would catch the attention of someone who would change everything. She couldn't see it. She couldn't feel it. Some mornings, she probably wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. If Naomi's God was really her God. If this road led anywhere at all. But her staying was never a mistake. And neither is yours. Most people think the miracle is the big moment. The answered prayer. The open door. The sudden shift. But my child, I need you to hear something that most people never understand. The miracle was not the moment everything changed. The miracle was every quiet morning you chose not to quit before that moment came. The miracle was you getting up one more time, opening that front door one more time, picking up that coffee mug one more time. The miracle has been happening all along. You just didn't recognize it because it looked like an ordinary day. I saw you crying in the shower. The water was running and you let yourself fall apart where nobody could hear you. You leaned against the wall. You let the tears mix with the water. And you thought you were alone in that moment. You thought that moment was invisible and meaningless. But my beloved, I was closer to you in that shower than I have ever been on any mountaintop. I never leave you when you break. I come closer. I saw the unopened Bible on your nightstand, the one that sat there for weeks, maybe longer. You saw it every morning and every night, and every time you looked at it, you felt a wave of guilt. You thought I was disappointed in you for not reading it. You thought I was counting the days. My child, I was never disappointed. Not for a second. I was just waiting. Because I knew that when you finally opened it again, the words would land deeper than they ever had before. Sometimes, the silence before the word makes the word louder. But I need to tell you something about that Bible. Something you won't expect. The fact that you never threw it away. The fact that it stayed on your nightstand through every hard night. That was faith. Not the kind of faith that shouts. The kind of faith that stays on the table and waits. And that kind of faith moves me more than you know. Now listen carefully. You thought nobody noticed your faithfulness. But heaven has been keeping a record that would stop you in your tracks if you saw it. And here is what I saw while you stayed. 3 things that were happening in the invisible. Things you could not see with your eyes. Things that were real even when they felt impossible. Number 1. What changed inside you? Every time you chose to stay, something shifted in your spirit that cannot be undone. Patience you didn't have before started growing like roots under soil. Strength you didn't know existed started forming in places you didn't even know were weak. You thought you were just getting through the day, dragging yourself forward. But I was building something inside you that could not be built any other way. The only material strong enough to make it was your willingness to keep going when everything in you wanted to stop. My child, you are not the same person you were when this hard season started. You are stronger, deeper, more real, more steady, more whole. And that transformation didn't happen because life got easier. It happened because you stayed when it was brutal. Number 2, what changed around you? While you were staying, people around you were watching, even when you thought no one saw. Your children saw a parent who didn't quit. Your friends saw someone who kept showing up even when life hit hard. Your coworkers saw someone who didn't crumble under pressure. You thought no one was paying attention. But my beloved, someone right now is still standing because they watched you stand first. You didn't preach a sermon. You didn't write a book. You just lived your faith out loud without even knowing it. You became an anchor for people who were drowning. You became proof that faithfulness is possible even when it hurts. Number 3, what changed because you refused to leave? This is the one most people miss entirely. When you stayed, you kept yourself in the place where my plan could reach you. Not because I only bless certain locations, but because staying required trust. And trust is the soil where every seed I've planted for you begins to grow. If you had walked away, I wouldn't have loved you less. You wouldn't have been wrong, but you would have missed the harvest that your own tears watered. You would have left the field one season before the fruit appeared. And my child, the fruit is closer than you think. If you are choosing not to quit today, I want you to write something in the comments right now. Write, "I'm still here." Let those words be your declaration. Not to me. I already know where you are, but to your own heart that needs to hear you say it out loud. Dear one, I need to say something gently here. If you walk away from this message believing that your quiet faithfulness produced nothing, you will miss the very thing I've been preparing. If you let the voice of discouragement name your season as wasted, you will step over the treasure that was buried under the waiting. The enemy doesn't need you to lose your faith entirely. He just needs you to believe your faith didn't count. Don't give him that. What you carried in secret, I honored in eternity. I saw you smiling through emotional pain at a family gathering. Everyone was laughing. The food was on the table. The conversation was loud. And you sat there holding a heaviness nobody in that room could see. You laughed when they laughed. You passed the plate when someone asked. And when you got to your car afterward, you sat there in silence for a long time before driving home. You thought you were just pretending. But my child, you were protecting the people you loved from a weight they weren't ready to carry. That's not pretending. That's love wearing a heavy coat. I saw you almost giving up on yourself. Not on your job, not on your family, on yourself. You looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. The fire in your eyes had dimmed. The confidence you once had felt like a memory from someone else's life. And you thought, maybe this is just who I am now. But listen to me carefully. The person you see in that mirror is not who you are becoming. You're in between. You're in the middle of a transformation that requires everything to be stripped back before something stronger can grow. The cocoon is not a coffin. It just feels like one. My beloved child, I want to talk about that front door again. You've walked through it hundreds of times, maybe thousands. Every morning you opened it and stepped out into a world that didn't always feel safe, that didn't always feel kind. And every evening you came back through it carrying things nobody else could see. Worries that sat on your shoulders like stones. Questions that echoed through your mind at night. Disappointments you never spoke about. That door has watched you leave tired and come home more tired. But listen to me now. That same door is about to mean something completely different to you. Because every time you walked through it, you were making a choice. A holy choice. You were choosing to try again. Choosing to believe one more time. Choosing to stay when the world gave you every reason to leave. That front dome door is no longer just a door. It's a monument to your faithfulness. You expected that your faithfulness would go unnoticed forever, that it would be lost in the noise of other people's louder stories. But here's the reality. What is done in secret is never truly secret in my kingdom. Every hidden act of obedience is written down. Every tear that fell when nobody was looking was caught. You were never invisible to me. Not once. Not ever. I saw your prayer journal. The one with pages that sometimes had no words at all. Just dates. Just blank lines. Sometimes just a single sentence. Help me. And my child. Those two words shook the heavens harder than any 1,000-word prayer ever could. You didn't need a speech. You didn't need perfect grammar. You didn't need theology. You just needed honesty. And honesty was always enough for me. You expected that staying would feel heroic, that there would be some clear sign you were on the right path, some confirmation, some encouragement from the people around you. But here's the reality. Staying rarely feels heroic in the moment. It feels heavy. It feels ordinary. It feels like nothing is happening. But the most powerful decisions in history were made by people who felt exactly the way you feel right now. And they only understood later. Ruth only understood later. And you will too. I saw you almost send that message, the one you typed and deleted. Typed and deleted again. You wanted to say everything you were feeling to someone. You wanted someone to understand what you were carrying. But you didn't send it. Because you weren't sure anyone would truly get it. You weren't sure it wouldn't make things worse. My beloved, I read every version of that message, even the ones you erased, even the draft that never existed outside your heart. I understood every single word, and I am answering it now. I saw you in the empty kitchen at midnight, standing by the counter, the tiles cold under your bare feet, not eating, not cooking, just standing, finally letting the day catch up to you. The house was silent, and you could feel everything you had been pushing down since sunrise. The worry, the doubt, the loneliness you couldn't name. That kitchen counter has heard more prayers than most altars, because that's where you were finally honest. My child, if you believe your quiet faithfulness never mattered, you'll miss the beautiful work I have already been doing inside you. If you convince yourself that staying was pointless, you'll walk right past the very thing your staying built. Don't do that. Please, don't dismiss what I have honored. Now let me tell you something about Ruth that nobody talks about. There were mornings on that dusty road to Bethlehem when Ruth must have looked behind her, back toward Moab, back toward the life that was familiar. back toward the place where she wouldn't be a stranger. And I am sure a voice inside her whispered, "You could still go back. No one would blame you. This is not your fight. This is not your people." But she didn't turn around. She kept walking. One more step, one more mile, one more sunrise on a road she didn't choose but refused to abandon. And the beautiful thing is this. Ruth didn't stay because she had a guarantee. She didn't stay because an angel appeared and showed her the ending. She stayed because she made a decision. A decision that her love and her loyalty were not for sale. Not even to her own comfort. Not even to her own fear. You expected that if you stayed long enough, the pain would stop. That faithfulness came with an expiration date for suffering. But here's the reality. The pain didn't always stop. But something happened that was even more important. You grew bigger than the pain. The pain didn't shrink. You expanded. You became someone who could carry what used to crush you. And that, my child, is a miracle that no doctor can prescribe and no person can take from you. How long have you been holding on? I want you to leave one number in the comments. Just a number. How many years? How many months? How many days have you been staying when everything told you to go? That number is not just a number. It's a testimony, and heaven knows it by heart. I saw you at that steering wheel again, driving to work, driving to pick up your children, driving home, always driving, always moving, always carrying someone or something. The car became your prayer room. The highway became your place of worship. You talked to me between traffic lights. You cried to me at red lights and wiped your face at green ones. You pulled into the driveway and checked your eyes in the mirror before you walked inside. My child, I was in every mile, every lane change, every deep breath. I never left that passenger seat. You expected that people who stay in hard seasons are just afraid to leave, that they're weak, that they don't have options. But here's the reality. It takes more courage to stay than it does to walk away. Anyone can leave. Leaving is the easy road. But planting your feet in the middle of something painful and saying, "I'm not going anywhere," that takes everything you have. And you gave everything. My beloved, your coffee mug is sitting somewhere right now. Maybe in your hand, maybe in the sink, maybe still on the counter from this morning. And I want you to see it differently from now on. Because every morning you filled it, you were making a decision. A decision to have another day. A decision to try again. A decision to believe that this day might matter. That mug holds more faith than any cathedral. You expected that the reward for staying comes in one big dramatic moment. A lightning bolt, a sudden change, an overnight miracle. But here's the reality. The reward has been coming all along, in small pieces, in quiet shifts you barely noticed, the way your patience deepened, the way your compassion grew, the way you started forgiving people you thought you'd be angry at forever, the way you started seeing beauty in things you used to walk past. That didn't come from nowhere. That came from staying. I see your shoes by the front door again. Remember when I mentioned them earlier? You kicked them off after a hard day. But now, I want you to see them through my eyes. Those shoes carried you further than any map could measure. Those shoes walked through seasons that would have broken someone with less heart. Those shoes stood on ground that was shaking beneath you, and they did not move. Your shoes tell the story of someone who refused to run when running would have been so much easier. I saw you staying for your children even when you had nothing left for yourself. You put dinner on the table when your own soul felt starving. You read them a bedtime story when you needed someone to tell you it would be okay. You showed up at their school event with a smile and sat in the audience while your heart was quietly splitting. Nobody gave you an award. Nobody saw the cost. But my child, the seeds you planted in your children by simply being there, those seeds will grow into trees that your grandchildren will rest under. Your presence was never small. It was everything. I saw you almost leave your marriage emotionally, not physically walk out, but the walls went up inside your heart. You started protecting yourself from disappointment by feeling less, by hoping less, by caring less. And no one knew, but you caught yourself. You didn't let the walls finish building. You left a crack, and that crack was enough for love to survive. I saw you walking past the bedroom you used to dream about filling with a child, or walking past the empty chair that used to belong to someone you lost. Some of you stayed in houses that hold echoes, rooms that remind you of what used to be. And every day you walked through those rooms and kept living. You didn't redecorate the pain away. You just kept going. My child, that took more bravery than any battlefield. Write 5 words in the comments right now if this is real for you. Write, I trust you. Not because everything makes sense, not because the pain is gone, but because you've decided that I am worth trusting, even when the evidence doesn't match the promise yet. My child, let me tell you the hidden truth I have been holding since the very beginning of this message. The reason your staying mattered so much is not because of what it produced. It's not about the outcome. It's because of what it revealed. Your staying revealed who you truly are. Not who you are when the blessings are flowing. Not who you are when everyone is clapping. But who you are when the night is long and the road is hard, and the answers don't come and the silence stretches on and on. That's the real you. And that person, the one who stays in the dark and still whispers, I believe, that person is the one I have been building my deepest, most unshakable promises around. You are not someone who just survived a hard season. You are someone who proved something to every corner of the spiritual realm. You proved that your faith does not depend on your feelings. You proved that your love does not require perfect circumstances. You proved that you can be trusted with greater things, because you were faithful when it felt like you were holding nothing at all. I want you to know who you really are. Not who the world says you are. Not who your doubts say you are. Who I say you are. You are not weak. You are not stuck. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are a person who looked at pain directly and did not run. You are a person who heard the voice of fear every single day and said, not today. You are someone whose name is spoken with honor in places you cannot yet see. Because staying, quiet, unseen, unrecognized staying, is the bravest kind of strength there is. Now let me give you something to carry forward. Not a timeline, not a date circled on a calendar, not a promise that everything changes by next week, but something better. Something that can never be taken from you. The deep, unshakable, permanent knowledge that your staying has been seen, recorded, honored. And it has changed things that you will spend the rest of your life discovering. Tomorrow morning when you slip on those shoes by the front door, pause, just for 1 second. Look at them. And remember, those shoes carried you through something that was supposed to break you. And it didn't. When you pour your coffee, let it be warm this time. Sit down with it. Drink it slowly. Don't rush. And know that the God who names every star also counted every single morning you showed up when you didn't feel like it. When you sit behind that steering wheel, before you turn the key, take one breath, just one, and hear me say, I am proud of you. Not for being perfect, not for having everything figured out, but for being here, still breathing, still believing. When you stand by that bedroom window tonight, you won't see the same darkness you used to see, because now you know. The darkness was never your future. It was just the space between where you were and where I am taking you. And I have been working in that space every single moment, even in the silence, especially in the silence. My beloved child, you don't need to hold on any tighter. You've been gripping so hard for so long. What I'm offering you now is not another battle. It's rest. Not the kind of rest where all the problems disappear, but the kind of rest that comes from knowing, truly, deeply, completely knowing, that your staying was never invisible, that every quiet tear counted, that every whispered prayer was heard, that you were never alone. Not once. The front door, the shoes, the cold coffee, the steering wheel, the prayer journal, the bedroom window, the phone on silent, the unopened Bible, the work bag, the kitchen counter, the folded laundry. These are not just objects in your ordinary life anymore. These are witnesses. They watched you choose faithfulness when no one was looking, and now they carry a different meaning. They are proof, sacred proof, of a faith that bent but never, ever broke. Ruth didn't know her story would be told for thousands of years. She just stayed. And look what happened. My child, your story is still being written. And the chapter called I Stayed is the most important one in the entire book. Be at peace tonight. Not the kind of peace that means every problem has been solved, but the kind of peace that settles deep into your bones when you finally stop fighting the lie that you were forgotten. You were never forgotten. You were being held the entire time. Even when my hand felt invisible, it was under you, supporting you, steadying you, keeping you from falling through. You stayed. I saw it. I have always seen it. And everything that matters, everything that truly, deeply, eternally lasts, was built in those quiet moments when you chose not to leave. You are loved beyond what words can hold. You are seen in ways your mind cannot yet imagine. You are honored in halls you have never walked through. And I am so deeply, so fiercely, so tenderly glad that you stayed.